Across the vast expanse of time, mythologies have forged the world. From the depths of chaos to the flames of distant realms, every culture has woven tales of gods, heroes, and celestial wonders. Welcome to Myth-to-Myth, your mythological portal. Subscribe for more epic journeys. Visit myth2myth.com and discover all our products. Silence replaces the song of liberation. The lightning forged by Cyclopes and the stones readied by the Hecatoncheires lie dormant. Olympus is no longer a refuge for wounded gods, but a mustering ground for a storm. Cronus broods upon Othrys, feeling the prophecy he tried to swallow return like a pulse in the world's throat. Between thunderbeats, Zeus must decide, remain hidden or confront the father who devoured his children. The Titans murmur in their mountain halls. The rivers whisper neutrality. Justice and memory walk the earth as Themis and Mnemosyne, weighing the coming reckoning. The wind carries no banners yet, only omens, clouds gathering with a purpose, stones humming with old power, the air tasting of iron and rain. What waits ahead is the first split in the sky, the first avalanche of primeval rock, the first answer to an age of silence. The storm is not born of rage alone, but of a vow, that the cycle of devouring fathers ends. The Titanomachy is no longer a rumor in caves. It stands at the horizon, ready to divide the heavens. On a wind-drawn ledge near Olympus, the children of Cronus form a circle around Hestia's steady flame. They are gods reborn, but not yet rulers. The taste of darkness still lingers at the edges of their breath. Zeus speaks without flourish. He remembers goat's milk and honey, the drums of the Curetes, the cavern that cradled him while his siblings slept inside a tyrant. The storm that freed us was only the beginning, he says, and the fire answers with a pulse. Demeter threads wild barley through her fingers. Hera stands upright, the instinct of order already alive in her gaze. Poseidon rests the trident across his knees, as if weighing an ocean. Hades remains in the penumbra, a calm that hints at depth rather than fear. They recount the turning points, the elixir that unbound Cronus' stomach, the release of Cyclopes and Hecatoncheires, the forging of thunder, trident, and the helm of unseen shadow. With each memory, resolve hardens, not for revenge but for restoration. Zeus names what has been avoided in words, the need to face Cronus openly and end the age of swallowing. The ground hums, and the air smells of roots and rain. Gaia's presence moves through stone like a remembered heartbeat. She says nothing of thrones, she speaks of balance. Restore, do not repeat. Then two figures step from the mist, as if it were a veil. Themis, whose gaze weighs without hatred, and Mnemosyne, whose eyes hold eras at once. Themis warns that rage without measure breeds a second tyranny. Law must guide the lightning. Mnemosyne opens what mortals would call a book, but for gods is simply memory. Uranus fallen by his son's hand, Cronus enthroned in fear, cycles turning like constellations. Some elder powers will stand aside, some will advise, some will resist until the sky is ash. Honor those who abstain, Mnemosyne counsels, but do not mistake silence for approval. Zeus listens. He is not yet king. He is a brother entrusted with consequence. He bows to law and memory. Hera notes supply and formation. Poseidon considers terrain and tremor. Hades watches for darkness that favors strategy, not fear. Gaia's pulse fades, but the vow remains. Justice must be the spine of the storm. At Zeus's whisper, a narrow arc of color blooms from Hestia's coals. Iris steps forth, robed in rain and light, voice measured, wings quiet as thought. Some late tellings whisper of As, a rainbow-winged sister who once bore messages for the Titans, a rumor from a later age that shadows Iris's path. Go, Zeus says, bind distant hearts with swift certainty. She lifts into the pale morning, threading her path across mountain and vale, leaving thin, shimmering seams in the air that close as soon as they are made. At each sacred place, grove, spring, cave, she delivers the same call. Witness is needed, not conquest. Counsel is welcomed, not coerced. Some shrines give only silence, others answer with faint pledges and cautious blessings. In deep caverns, the Cyclopes stir at the mention of alliance. In chasms where the Hecatoncheires sleep, rock shifts with the slow joy of strength remembered. The message also reaches those who will not fight, powers of river and horizon, who choose to preserve what must endure beyond war. Iris returns and descends with hardly a gust of wind. The sky has heard, she says, and the earth and those between. Zeus nods, not in triumph, but in confirmation that the web is spun. Beneath the earth's rim, in chambers lined with the music of water, Oceanus sits beside Tethys, whose hands pour coolness into cups that never empty. Iris's halo softens upon the currents as she speaks. Oceanus listens, eyes as deep as night's floor. If I turn the world river into a weapon, he says, the streams that heal will carry grief. I will stand aside. Tethys agrees, not from fear, but from a promise to life that predates crowns. Yet the doorway remains open for those born of their waters. From the threshold steps Styx, solemn and exact, with her children at her back, Zelos with bright challenge on his tongue, Nike with calm certainty in her step, Kratos with iron in his frame, Bia with quiet, directed force. Oceanus does not command, he allows. Go, he says, keep your oaths and return whole. Styx answers with a nod that feels like a seal. Iris departs, the river returns to its natural hymn, and Tethys watches the reflections on the ceiling ripple into patterns that speak of coming change. Neutrality is not absence. It is a chosen stillness. Mount Othrys holds its breath. In halls of black stone, torches quiver as if remembering older winds. Cronus walks with the scythe that once ended the sky's first rain. He has disgorged stone and children, yet peace evades him. A son's name scratches at the walls of his sleep. He summons those who still answer when he calls. Hyperion, flicker of dawn in his hair. Iapetus, heavy-browed and precise. Crius, who reads the night for angles. Coeus, whose mind turns heavens into measure. And Atlas, broad-shouldered, chosen to command. The earth trembles in ways that are not storms, Cronus says. Lightning arcs without a cloud. Hyperion speaks of lights to the north that do not fade. Iapetus names caution. Coeus calculates the distances between omens. Crius claims the constellations have shifted in patterns that favor neither side yet. Atlas watches the door rather than the debate, feeling the mountain's weight and his own. Cronus's fingers tighten on the scythe. He remembers a mother's counsel that once favored him, and hears an old voice, Uranus distant and blood-echoed, whispering that sons are never harmless. They gather beneath a vault carved to resemble a night without stars. Cronus sits. The scythe rests across his knees like a horizon. Hyperion stands with heat shimmering around him. Iapetus oils blades that have tasted ages. Crius adjusts a band of iron etched with constellations. Coeus speaks in brief sentences, reducing chaos to sequence. Atlas remains slightly forward, a living wall. We will not be ambushed by prophecy, Cronus declares. Barricade every path up Othrys. Signal our banners from ridge to ridge. Let stone answer stone. Titanesses linger in a half-shadow, Thea bright, Phoebe silent, Rhea distant, Mnemosyne unreadable. Themis steps from the line and offers unwelcome truth. Law will not defend a throne built on fear. Mnemosyne follows with the memory no one wishes to hold. Cronus dismisses them, but their words settle like fine ash. Orders ripple outward. The mountain fills with the scrape of shields, the thud of feet, the rumble of serpentine barriers dragged into place. Atlas surveys it all, nods once, and begins the first of many musters, his voice steady, his doubts unvoiced. Far from the Titan halls, in a ravine where wind seldom reaches, Metis waits, a presence like clear water over dark stone. Zeus comes without entourage. They speak softly, as if words could wake sleeping mountains. Metis does not flatter, she dissects. Cronus's strength is not only the scythe, it is habit. He expects force to meet force. Break his habit. She maps the field in thought, not chalk. How the Hecatoncheires can stagger the Titan front with uneven rhythms rather than constant hail. How Hera's order can shield the Cyclopes while they choose angles rather than volume. How Poseidon can fissure the plain to tilt the enemy's stance without drowning the land that must be fed after the war. How Hades can vanish not to assassinate, but to count vulnerabilities. Win today without spending tomorrow, Metis says. Zeus listens and asks where caution ends and cowardice begins. At the point where fear serves only itself, she answers. He leaves with a plan that feels like a woven net rather than a spear. When the wind returns to the ravine, Metis is gone, as if resolve absorbed her. In a chamber of soft glow, Titanides converse in the restraint of those who have seen too many ages to shout. Theia's hands shine as if holding a private sunrise. Phoebe listens for oracles that choose silence. Rhea's eyes rest on a memory of a swaddled stone and a child hidden in sound. Mnemosyne speaks sparingly, storing everything for after. I will not lift a hand for Cronus, Rhea says, nor against my children. The statement is not a riddle, it is a boundary. Helios's light grazes the doorway and withdraws. Selene's pale gaze touches the floor. Eos paints the air and goes. Neutrality here is made of love and dread, of knowledge that war settles some accounts and opens others. Outside the chamber, the mountain clenches. The Titanides do not promise shelter, only witness. Their stillness becomes a measure of the noise to come. At the foot of Othrys, two sons of Iapetus stand among pines that toss in a wind that has not yet arrived. Prometheus's eyes carry a brightness that is not flame. Epimetheus looks over his shoulder at paths he has already walked. Justice is moving, Prometheus says. If we stand in front of it, we will be broken. If we stand with it, we may shape where it goes. Epimetheus's mouth works on a word that will one day be a name, Pandora, but he does not speak it. Blood binds, he argues. To turn from Cronus is to cut ourselves away. Prometheus answers that blood without rightness is only weight. He does not pledge thunder or stone. He offers accuracy and patience. They part as brothers who love each other and disagree. One climbs toward counsel and risk. The other remains where habit feels like safety. Far above, a raven circles as if taking attendance. Atlas drills the ranks on a shelf of rock overlooking the plain. He moves like a fortress given breath. Shields forward, he calls, and stone rises in a single wave. Spears of serpent stone are planted in ordered rows. Bands of abyssal rock form teeth along the ridges. Atlas inspects every formation, every gap, every place where ground might betray weight. He does not yet carry heavens, but sky seems to lean toward him, as if testing his strength. Rumor moves along the line that punishment waits for the defeated, that a back will be chosen to bear what horizons cannot hold. Atlas silences it with work. He adjusts a veteran's stance with a tap. He redraws the line of advance to a curve that will catch thrown boulders and deflect their force aside. He looks south and imagines a wall that does not fall. He looks north and tastes rain. When he closes his eyes, he sees not triumph but endurance, the kind that can be mistaken for obedience by those who have never held a shield for more than a heartbeat. Dawn comes without birdsong. The gods stand at the crest of Olympus, quiet as cliffs. Zeus breathes once, then lowers his hand. The host begins to descend. Poseidon walks with the sea contained in his stride, water beading and falling from the trident's prongs like patient stars. Hades settles the helm of darkness beneath his arm for now. Absence will be his edge later. Hera binds ribbons at each wrist, not ornament, but oath. Demeter brushes her fingers over the ground, promising that what is broken will one day be mended. Behind them march the Hecatoncheires, Coeus, Briareus, and Gaius, each lifting a hill-sized stone as if it were an oath given form. The Cyclopes follow close, and this time the line reads not as siegecraft but as purpose, the Cyclopes behind them with their forged thunder. Kratos flexes restraint rather than rage. Bia's strength stands where it is placed and nowhere else. Zelos murmurs challenges that sharpen without dividing. Nike keeps her counsel, eyes steady on the horizon. No war cry rises. Only gravel, breath, and a distant, waiting plain. The first step is not conquest. It is intent. The armies face each other across the Thessalian plain like two continents about to collide. On the slopes of Othrys, the Titan line glitters with iron and serpent stone. Hyperion stands forward, a corona of heat wavering above his brow. Iapetus checks the balance of his paired blades, measuring distance with a soldier's eye. Crius traces a pattern in the dust that his captain's mirror in silence. Coeus studies the terrain as if it were a diagram of the sky, assigning stations with a mathematician's calm. Atlas takes the center with a shield cut from a single slab of abyssal rock, its surface dull and unyielding. Opposite them, the Olympians halt behind a living rampart. The Hecatoncheires shoulder hill-sized stones. The Cyclopes set their baskets and crates in clean rows. The young gods spread along the ridgeline with a discipline born yesterday and hardened overnight. For a breath, neither side speaks. Zeus steps forward, lightning sleeping in his hand. Across the distance, Cronus answers only by angling the sickle until it catches the spare light of morning. The plain tightens. A raven shadow slides between the armies and is gone. Then Zeus lowers his arm. The first stone leaves a giant's hand, turning in the sun like a newborn moon. Cottus throws as if the mountain were a cloak he's tired of wearing. The boulder lifts, turns, and sails. The air buckles around it. Briareus answers with a storm of his own, 100 hands working in unstinting rhythm. Guise steps and plants, each motion precise, each stone a verdict. When the first impacts strike, Othrys shudders. Dust climbs into the sky in thick pillars. Ridges crumble as if waking from a long, stiff sleep. Atlas braces and shunts one slab aside with the face of his shield, knees dipping, boots biting. Crius's formation split into staggered ranks, letting the next volley slam the ground between them rather than their bodies. Hyperion's heat ripples against the incoming hail, blunting edges, scorching faces. A stone clips a Titan's shoulder and sends him cartwheeling into a shallow ravine. Another plows a furrow so deep it finds old, dark rock and drags it to the surface like a secret confessed. The Hecatoncheires do not celebrate. They simply reach, lift and throw again, a trinity of inexhaustible labor. Their breath comes like bellows. Their eyes water with dust that even gods must respect. The ground decides to remember that it is older than thrones. The Cyclopes step into their lanes, movement spare and exact. Arges checks the seams on a bundle of bolts. Brontes tests the weight of a coil. Steropes tilts his head, listening for the inner hiss that means a storm is ready. The handoff is swift. To Zeus, to Poseidon, to the ranks who can bear such charge without breaking. Zeus casts first. The bolt splits the air and writes a brief, white script across the sky before it blossoms at the Titan front in heat and roar. Poseidon follows with a throw that strikes the plain itself. Steam geysers up, and shards of wet stone rattle like sudden rain. The Cyclopes then loose their own volleys. No catapults, no engines, only hands trained by ages at the forge. Thunderheads boil on a blue noon. The horizon flashes again and again. Titans flinch, then set their jaws. Hyperion answers with a flare that washes color from the world. Iapetus charges beneath the streaks, blades low, choosing motion over awe. Atlas times his shield lifts to catch the worst of the falling fire. For a moment, the plain is a storm drowning in its own light. Cronus lifts the sickle and carves a curve through dust and glare, a gesture that means advance. Atlas leads with the shield wall, stones chiming as they strike the face and skid aside. Hyperion sends heat low across the ground to soften the bite of incoming rock. Coeus calls for offset steps and broken rhythms, pulling his ranks out of the predictable cadence the Hecatoncheires have begun to anticipate. Crius points, and a spear line forms at an angle that promises to split the Olympian left if it holds. Moirai, son of Iapetus, surges past the line, club of abyssal rock lifted in both hands, his shout more pride than tactics. He crashes against a tossed boulder, staggers and grins with a kind of joy that does not learn. Iapetus meets Poseidon in a quick, clanging exchange, trident prongs scraping steel, sparks blowing sideways. The Titans catch smaller stones and return them, hurling back a rain of celestial stones that sting and split and bruise the rhythm of the giant barrage. For heartbeats, momentum tilts. The plain hears a different drum, boots driving forward, shields shouldering aside, the rough cheer of soldiers who believe the line will hold. Dust veils the Titan right, then parts to reveal new banners. Perses, son of Crius, strides in first, destruction carried not as chaos but as craft, an exactness in how he chooses where to break, when to press, what to leave standing to trap the unwary. He studies the churned ground, nods once, and sets his cohort to wedge into a gap the Cyclopes barrage has left. Beside him moves Astraeus, your brother, cool as high night, cloak lifting in a breeze that arrives when he does. He raises a hand, and the evening winds answer though it is midday, slipping low along the Titan ranks to shroud their shift and bend the dust toward Olympus. Not a miracle, an alignment. Banners lean the same direction, voices carry where they must. The smell of heat and stone drifts into Olympian faces at just the wrong moment. Perses signals, and the wedge bites. Astraeus angles the breeze again, and the Titan right advances under a curtain of grit that makes eyes water and judgments late. Atlas sees the opening widen and adjusts his center to meet it, sweat stinging his grip. The battle narrows to a crack where a world could split. Poseidon plants the trident and turns his wrist as if keying a lock in the earth's spine. A tremor unzips beneath the advancing Titans, not a canyon, not ruin, just enough betrayal underfoot to steal their perfect stride. Shields tilt, spears bob, the wedge hesitates. Hades fades from the edge of sight and becomes a cool absence behind the Titan lines, counting stores, noting where the ground is hollow, measuring how far the banners can be pushed before the slope punishes their weight. Hera moves among the Cyclopes and the gods holding the center, correcting a stance here, a spacing there, turning bravery into shape. Demeter plants her palm on the soil and steadies the ground under the Olympian feet. Roots far below adjust, as if obeying her patience. Zelos hisses a dare that stiffens spines without clouding minds. Bia lifts a fallen shield and returns it to the hand that needs it. Kratos binds a shallow cut and says nothing. The Titan push slows, not because their courage dims, but because the land refuses to be an accomplice. Perses recalculates. Astraeus shifts the wind again and looks to the ridgeline, searching for where the next break may come. Within the earth, the music is percussion and strain. She feels each thrown stone as a knuckle against her ribs. Each crack Poseidon draws is a thin, careful line held just this side of cruelty. Gaia does not choose by blood today. She chooses by what will leave the world able to bear gardens after grief. She hardens soil where the Hecatoncheires must plant their feet for one more heave. She loosens gravel where a Titan charge would crush more than pride. She cools the ground a breath beneath Hyperion's wash of heat, so the plain does not glass and poison. She does not break Cronus's stance. She refuses only to be his instrument. The war replays a story she has heard before, and she is tired of endings that devour beginnings. The mountain answers her with groans that only she hears. A fox runs from shadow to shadow and stops, puzzled at a calm it cannot name. The day does not tilt toward mercy, it tilts toward survival. Hours grind like millstones. The Hecatoncheires' throws lose some height. Their arms burn, their breath rasps. The Cyclopes' stock of bolts thins to careful handfuls. Zeus's casting grows more selective, each throw chosen for meaning rather than noise. Across the line, Hyperion's blaze dims to a steady glare. Atlas's shield face is notched and scored. Iapetus's shoulders drop between bursts of motion. Perses keeps his wedge from overreaching by will alone. Astraeus steadies the wind and then lets it go, unwilling to demand what the day will not give. Coeus adjusts formations in small, tireless increments that keep the line intact without asking miracles. The plane cannot decide who it belongs to. Shouts fade to work sounds. The foots drag, the shields ring, the short exhale that precedes another effort. No banner falls for long. No captain finds the lever that turns balance into rout. The balance feels so exact, it could hold for 10 years before choosing a side. The war's shape declares itself, not a single thunderclap, but weather-crossing seasons. Zeus lifts a bolt he will not yet spend. Cronus does not charge, he anchors. Between them hangs a silence crowded with futures. Dusk draws a long line over the plain, and the sky chooses sides without choosing a victor. Above Othrys, cloud banks bruise and hold their color. Above Olympus, a clear band opens where early stars dare to show. Smoke lifts in slow braids from shattered ground. The smell is metal, rain, and a sweetness no one can place. The armies step back in good order, not fleeing, not pursuing. Iapetus binds the cut he ignored. Hyperion rolls his shoulders and lets heat drain into the stones at his feet. Atlas counts his companies and finds enough faces to claim the day is not lost. Perses walks the ground they won for an hour and decides not to keep it overnight. Astraeus dismisses the winds and leaves the banners limp, as if the mountain itself sighed. On the other side, Zeus moves through his ranks, touching a shoulder, a helm, the rim of a shield. Hestia relights what dimmed. Hera starts a list. Demeter carries a handful of dark soil in her palm, weighing the debt. Nike meets Zeus's eye and nods once, offering no speech that might pretend the balance has shifted. Night arrives not as mercy, but as pause. Back on Olympus, armor thuds down on stone and is set carefully in rows. Arges, Brontes, and Steropes inspect what remains. Bolts with hairline cracks are culled. Coils that still sing are wrapped in oilcloth. Hestia's fire returns warmth to fingers that do not tire but do forget gentleness after long strain. Hera convenes a brief exact council where the shield wall held, where the wedge bit, where the tremor corrected a failing flank, where haste almost cost more than it saved. Hades reports quietly. Caches in shallow caves on the Othrys side, a ravine that looks solid until it is stepped on, the habit of a captain who turns his head before he signals. Poseidon sits apart, drawing lines in damp ash with a trident prong, a map only he can read. Demeter rinses her hands and spreads the dark, scarred soil on a cloth, as if tending a patient who will not die but will not recover without care. Zeus listens and does not pretend certainty. He ends the council with a single instruction: refine, do not repeat. The camp sleeps in shifts beneath a sky that seems closer than before. Othrys receives its soldiers with the rough grace of stone. Cronus returns to his hall and lays the sickle across the arm of the throne, as if refusing to admit any tremor. Hyperion sits and lets heat fade from his skin until it is only a memory of noon. Iapetus cleans the edge of a blade that met the trident and did not lose. Crius redraws his earlier pattern with fresh angles where the ground proved false. Coeus moves counters on a board that has no squares, rehearsing sequences until they become reflex. Atlas stands long in a passage where wind threads constantly from one end to the other. He closes his eyes and imagines holding something heavier than a shield and steadier than a wall. Perses writes the day in scars on the plane of his mind and concludes that destruction must be patient to be complete. Astraeus steps out beneath the first stars and reads weather that is not yet sky. Cronus speaks little. He orders watches set and paths guarded and sends his captains to sleep they will not find easily. The mountain feels taller at night, as if it had grown while the armies were away. Sleep drifts through the camps like a thin river, and memory walks its banks. Mnemosyne steps into dreams without rustling a leaf. To Zeus, she shows a cradle in a cave, the hush of Curette's bronze, a stone wrapped where a child should be. Remember why you rose, she says, and whom you must not become. To Hera, she sets images of broken lines made whole by order, reminding her that victory is a structure, not a shout. Poseidon sees shores that will need rebuilding, walls of sea that can save or ruin. Hades sees doors, not to be forced, but to be kept. Demeter sees fields flattened by tread and lightning, then a hand smoothing soil, seeding patience. Among the Titans, Mnemosyne is no less strict. Cronus dreams a sky turned away from him, a scythe that returns to his hand not as crown, but as anchor. Atlas sees his shield become horizon, his stance a pillar that does not move. Hyperion sees a dawn that does not brighten for him. Memory leaves no command, it leaves a measure. When the sleepers wake, their hearts carry a weight that did not come from stone. In a quiet beyond wind, three sisters sit by a loom that does not age. Clotho spins thread so fine it could be music. Lachesis measures with an eye that neither pities nor condemns. Atropos turns her shears until the metal sings softly. They do not argue about right, they balance continuance. Clotho lays new lines for alliances that feel improbable until they happen. Lachesis adjusts the length of struggles so that a single day does not bear what a decade must. Atropos angles her blades near threads that tremble. Captains who will not survive their courage, messengers who will live because a gust turned at the right instant, a general whose burden will change shape. The weave grows dense where Othrys and Olympus face each other, then thins toward seas and isles that have not yet heard the thunder. The sisters speak little. "Hold," says one. "Not yet," says another. "Soon," says the third. When they rise, the pattern contains a future in which the sky is lifted by punishment. The sea builds walls for a day, and the underways close to those who would flee. The cloth gleams, not bright, but inevitable. Night arrives on silent feet. Nyx lays a shawl over the plain and color drains from broken stones. Moros follows like a flavor you cannot name, but cannot forget. He pauses above Cronus and tastes iron in the air. He pauses above Zeus and tastes a sharpness that might one day bite its own hand. The Erinyes drift at the edges, not yet summoned but attentive to debts that wars accrue, blood not avenged for pride, but balanced for law. Nyx does not counsel, she cools. Under her shade, anger loses its glare and shows its bones, fear, hunger, habit. She moves among the sleeping wounded, under shields set as pillows, over the baskets of lightning and the heaps of serpent-stone spears. She looks once toward the caves where the Hecatoncheires rest, each breath a bellows, once toward the forges of the Cyclopes, where a glow still pulses like a heart under rock. She does not love either camp more. She loves darkness kept whole. When she lifts her shawl a margin, stars peer down as if to say they have watched worse and better and will watch again. Moros lingers and smiles without kindness. Across groves and hills, small fires ring the night. River gods speak softly so their banks do not crumble at the news. Oryds argue with the caution of cliffs, indifferent to flags but attentive to echoes. Dryads count broken branches and plan where new growth must be coaxed when storms are memory. Nereids pass rumors along the coast. Walls of sea will rise if called, but harbors will be spared if vows hold. The Boreads carry scraps of voices from camp to camp, their gusts threading reports into a rough tapestry. Alcyone stills a cove until it sleeps like a child. Ceres hover where they are not wanted, edged smiles ready, then drift off disappointed by the day's restraint. Iris appears at 2 or 3 fires, leaving clarity and taking confusion. Kratos and Bia walk a silent circuit below Olympus, not to intimidate, but to remind. Strength stands wakeful. Zelos wagers quietly that tomorrow's discipline will be tighter. Nike says nothing at all, and looks at the eastern line of dark where dawn will draw with a steady hand. The small gods agree on only this: the world is not ending, but it is changing posture. Prometheus climbs a slope lined with pines that hold their scent even after lightning. He waits where the ground drops away into shadow and speaks when footsteps arrive. Themis comes with the walk of someone who distrusts shortcuts. Mnemosyne arrives without sound, the night adjusting around her. Force met force, Prometheus begins, and balance held. Next, we must ask which habits we can break without breaking ourselves. He proposes signals that require no banners, positions chosen for the lies they tell to overconfident scouts, feints that cost nothing and teach everything. He offers to map the pauses of Titan captains, the tendencies of squads, the places where the plane itself remembers to give. Themis sets boundaries, no traps that punish neutrality, no desecration that would sour a river or famine a valley. Mnemosyne writes without writing, storing plan and limit together. If you betray your kin, Themis warns, you must do it for law, not pride. Prometheus nods, knowing that one day he will break a different law to aid a different hunger and pay for it. For now, he chooses a side because the future must be habitable. They part with nothing signed and everything decided. Atlas walks the ridge where wind always speaks. He rolls his shoulder under the weight of a shield that has learned too many impacts. Below, fires mark the Titan camps in careful constellations. He reads them like a captain and like something else, like a being who suspects that his labor will outlast victory and loss alike. He tests grips, changes stances, teaches a younger Titan how to let a thrown stone glance rather than shatter. He listens for doubt in his own chest and finds none. He finds only endurance which others mistake for obedience. A rumor passes near him and dies, that the heavens might one day need a bearer. He does not chase the rumor away. He looks up, and the dome looks back, enormous and indifferent. If it comes, he says to no one, I will stand. Not because he loves punishment, but because he understands spans of time that outlive rage. He returns to the drills and resets the line, so that when dawn draws breath, the shield wall will meet it already braced. Strength, he decides, is not only what strikes, it is what does not move. On Olympus, Hestia builds a round fire that burns without smoke. The gods gather in a ring and keep a respectful distance, as if the flame were a judge. Zeus speaks last. We will not win by becoming what we oppose. He lifts no bolt. He names limits. Poseidon vows earthquakes that tilt walls but spare fields and harbors. Hades promises unseen steps for knowledge, not assassination. Hera pledges command that holds courage in formation rather than letting it spill. Demeter vows to keep seed safe while stone flies. The Cyclopes place a hand each on their tools, promising precision over spectacle. The Hecatoncheires tap the earth in a rhythm that means discipline. Styx comes forward and seals what is said without ceremony. Kratos nods once as if fastening a strap. Bia exhales through her nose and relaxes ready hands. Zelos smiles because boundaries sharpen contests. Nike does not bless them. She simply stands near, which is blessing enough. When the circle breaks, the fire continues to burn, a reminder that warmth and light require tending, not appetite. Zeus walks to the cliff where the air smells like stone cooling after heat. He reviews the day as Metis taught, not as a list of glories, but as a ledger of cause and reply. The Hecatoncheires must vary their cadence. The Cyclopes must prize angle over count. Hera must anchor the center with fewer words and more touch. Poseidon must prepare a seam of sea that will rise only when called. Hades must learn the paths that do not appear on any map. He sets the final bolt aside, unwilling to spend it to prove he has it. Across the dark, Othrys shows no movement, which is a kind of message. Zeus draws a single line of light across the sky and lets it vanish before it strikes. Not a threat, but a signature. I am here, I will wait. I will not sleep through the turning. Behind him, the camp breathes. Ahead, The plane holds its scars like a mouth holding a secret. The night does not feel safer. It feels exact. Between midnight and dawn, two vigils answer each other without words. On Olympus, Iris moves along the heights, checking posts where signals can bloom without smoke or sound. She tightens a rope, repositions a lamp, teaches a young god the difference between haste and speed. Styx's children patrol the lower paths, Kratos counting steps, Bia testing gates, Zalos provoking just enough competition to keep sentries keen, Nike choosing the high stones where a watcher can see far and be seen by none. On Othrys, Atlas conducts a similar circuit, his presence making torches burn steadier. Coeus reads stars and adjusts watches to match the sky's silent advice. Crius marks intervals on a wall with the tip of a spear, training the ear to time. Hyperion lends a low glow that does not betray positions. Perses and Astraeus confer at the right flank, one planning where to break, the other listening for a breeze that will favor the break. Neither camp rests fully. Both camps prepare honestly. The silence between mountains becomes a rope stretched taut, humming at a pitch only gods can hear. Dawn flattens color into gray, and the plain looks almost clean until the first angle of light reveals every scar. The Olympians eat in quiet. The Titans do the same. Hands wrap straps, fit greaves, check edges. The work is ordinary and therefore holy. Zeus confers with Metis once more, not for new schemes but for the discipline of review. She trims what is too clever and keeps what is simple enough to survive contact. Cronus holds the sickle as if it were part of his arm and speaks a few words to Atlas that sound like trust and use in equal measure. The wind moves without omen. Birds test the air as if the world were unchanged. It is not. Two orders stand opposed. One that's swallowed to stay strong, one that vows to hold so it does not have to swallow. Neither breaks, not yet. The last moments before a second clash stretch thin and transparent, and through them both sides can almost see the day when the scale will tip. Almost. The first clash of the Titanomachy closes without a victor and without a lie. Stones flew like verdicts. Lightning wrote its brief, burning script. Shields held and cracked and held again. The Hecatoncheires proved that mountains can be moved. The Cyclopes showed that storms can be forged and guided. The gods learned the tempo of restraint. The Titans reminded the world that old strength does not yield simply because prophecy says it will. Neutral powers stood aside and kept the rivers clear for the world that must drink after the war. Counsel and memory stood nearer to the new order than to the old, but neither drew a blade. Night fell, and the sky divided. Bruise over Othrys, clear band over Olympus, announcing not peace but pause. What follows is not thunder for its own sake, but craft. Poseidon will raise walls of sea that do not drown what they defend. Hades will close routes below so that flight is a choice, not a refuge. Hera will tighten a line until it behaves like a single will. Zeus will keep the final bolt until it is the last word, not merely the loudest. Cronus will trust the scythe and the habit that made him king. An age is turning. The world stands between stone and storm and waits for the hand that will move it. Subscribe for more epic journeys. Visit myth2myth.com and discover all our products.